President Obama seems to be advocating a palace revolt within the Fourth Estate. Aides are asking other news organizations to change the way they treat Fox News Channel. Correspondent James Rosen reports on the latest volley in the administration's war of words.
A lot of their news programming, it's really not news, it's pushing a point of view. And the bigger thing is that other news organizations like yours ought not to treat them that way. And
the president looks at it, we look at it, is it's not a news organization so much as it has a perspective. And that's a different take. And more importantly, is not have the CNNs and the others in the world basically be led in following Fox.
Senior aides to President Obama spent a second consecutive Sunday campaigning against Fox News, moving beyond last week's name-calling to calling for unspecified action by the other TV networks. On Monday, the president's spokesman suggested Fox's alleged bias can be chalked up to a corporate lust for profits.
I would say sometimes programming can be tilted toward accentuating those profits.
The White House campaign against Fox News began in late August, the last time an Obama administration official appeared on Fox News Sunday with Chris Wallace. Then in early October, the White House formally notified Fox News that President Obama would not grant any interviews to the channel before at least the end of the year. And then on October 11th came the first public shot.
I mean, the reality of it is that Fox News often operates almost as either the research arm or the communications arm of the Republican Party.
Those remarks by the White House's top media advisor came as the internet burst forth with other comments Anita Dunn has made, including an occasion in May where she spoke admiringly of Chairman Mao, and remarks this past January in which Dunn described how the Obama campaign circulated videos made by advisor David Plouffe as a way of controlling news coverage of their candidate.
It was a way for us to get our message out without having to actually talk to reporters. We just put that out there and make them write what Plouffe had said, as opposed to Plouffe doing an interview with a reporter. So it was very much, we controlled it. We increasingly, by the general election, very rarely did we communicate through the press anything that we didn't absolutely control.
On Fox News Sunday, host Chris Wallace rebutted Dunn's claim that the channel has not reported on the sex scandal involving Republican Senator John Ensign, and drew implicit criticism of the White House's effort from a leading Democrat.
I mean, do you think this is a good strategy to individually call out and attack an individual news organization, and frankly, to cut off doing any business with them?
Well, they're not doing any business. They know I'm on here today, and you know,
with all due respect, you're not an administration official.
But it's hard for everyone to prove what I do. I just do what I do. But I spoke to the White House before I came on this morning.
As of now, they're going to cut us off and not
I
give us
think
anybody
that will
to ask questions.
A good debate, having everybody on. That's why, listen, I don't agree with much that Fox does, but I love to come on. At least you can give me the opportunity to talk, and I think it's important to present our side.
For President Obama himself, Fox News and Chris Wallace weren't always so toxic.
I think it's fair to say that I don't always get my most favorable coverage on Fox, but I think that's part of how democracy is supposed to work. You know, we're not supposed to all be in lockstep here.
Meantime, analysts and veterans of past White Houses spent their second consecutive Sunday explicitly warning the Obama team to abandon its focus on Fox News.
The more they can treat Fox like one other organization, the better, easier they can get back to governing. What Americans want is a robust competition of ideas, and they ought to be willing to go out there and mix it up with some strong conservatives on Fox, just as there are strong conservatives on CNN, like Bill Bennett.
Are they going to drop MSNBC? Even occasionally CNN? I mean, really? Are they going to cleanse the networks? Which is the network here which is perfectly objective?
Look, there are lots of objectionable things said on MSNBC and NBC and cable channels and CNN for every president, for or against it. And that ought not to be the standard by which the White House determines whether or not it's going to demonize a news channel as an enemy.
We contacted a number of the network and cable TV news correspondents who covered the Obama campaign. None had any on-the-record comment to make about Anita Dunn's description of how the campaign sought to control the news media. As for Fox News, Senior Vice President Michael Clemente expressed surprise that, quote, the White House continues to declare war on a news organization instead of focusing on the critical issues that Americans are concerned about, end quote. Brett?
James, thank you. Well, the war on Fox has been puzzling to a lot of people in the media. And you can count senior political analyst Britt Hume among that group. Good evening, Britt.
Hi, Brett. It is a little hard to discern a strategy behind the White House campaign of criticism of Fox News unless it's simply this. an attempt to quarantine Fox and thereby discourage other media outlets from following up stories that originate here. The White House was clearly stung by the revelations about former aide Van Jones. He turned out to have harbored views that were out there where the buses don't run, and he was forced to resign. And the White House could not much have cared for the hidden camera expose of Acorn, an organization with which the president had a past association, and one whose voter registration drives have benefited the Democratic Party. So the president's aides appear on other news channels to say that Fox, unlike those outlets, is really not a news organization but an arm of the Republican Party. One wonders how our colleagues at CNN and elsewhere like being patted on the head and given the seal of approval by the White House. These outlets already stand accused of being in the tank for Mr. Obama. Do they really want to open themselves up to more such criticism by ignoring legitimate stories because they originate here? Here at Fox, meanwhile, the attacks have been something of a boon, especially to the highly opinionated and wildly popular Glenn Beck, who has installed a direct phone line on his set and invited the White House to call if anyone there has a beef. So far, no calls. Brett.
Well, Britt, Anita Dunn has responded to a piece of tape that was first run on Glenn Beck's show, in which she references what she calls one of her two favorite political philosophers, Mao Zedong, the former communist leader of China. Here is that soundbite real quick, and then her reaction.
Two of my favorite political philosophers, Mao Zedong and Mother Teresa, not often coupled with each other, but the two people that I turn to most.
Here is her reaction to that. Quote, the Mao quote is one I picked up from the late Republican strategist Lee Atwater from something I read in the late 1980s, so I hope I don't get my progressive friends mad at me. The use of the phrase favorite political philosophers was intended as irony, but clearly the effort fell flat. Britt?
Well, she also said this is the two people she turns to most. This doesn't sound like it was a one-off attempt to make a joke and imitate the Republican strategist Lee Atwater. But look at the outcome here. So Anita Dunn attacks Fox News, and the next thing you know, a piece of videotape turns up with her speaking admiringly of Chairman Mao. In the meantime, Glenn Beck is having a field day with this whole thing, and is obviously one of the objects of their criticism. Not only has the telephone on the set, but today he's got a guy sitting next to the phone dressed in a Mao suit. I don't think they can keep this such much longer based on the results, Brett.
All right, Brett. Thank you.
Look, the great sin of Fox News is that it broke the monopoly of the liberal media. That's the reason why it's so wildly successful. I once said years ago that the genius of Roger Ailes and Rupert Murdoch is to have discovered a niche American broadcasting audience in news, namely half of the American people. And the other consequence is that it angers the Obama administration, which is used to, particularly after last year, wall-to-wall adulation. I mean, this is almost comical if you look at the lineup. On the one hand, in the tank are ABC, NBC, CBS, NPR, PBS, CNN, and MSNBC. Some of these, like MSNBC, are so in the tank they need scuba gear. Some of them occasionally emerge for a breath of air, but only occasionally. And Fox stands up and refuses to bend a knee, and that's what they can't stand. Look, CNN was patted on the head by the Obama administration's objective. CNN is an organization that a few weeks ago had fact-checking of a Saturday Night Live skit that was mildly critical of Obama, but did no fact-checking on wildly, grotesquely libelous, racist statements allegedly made by Rush Limbaugh, which were not made by Rush Limbaugh. It gives you an idea of the difference in how they treat things, and that's not a matter of sloppiness, that's a matter of ideology.
White House